TBA. Together again.
Hello, my name is John Zellar, and on behalf of our co-presenters Amanda Blackstone and Vincent Morris, we'd like to welcome you to the Texas Bandmaster Association Convention 2021, and we'd also like to welcome you to our presentation, New in Town, Putting Your Best Foot Forward. In this presentation, we'll cover some tips, tricks, and strategies for sailing into your first year at a new position or a new place and making it a successful one. This presentation is sponsored by Young Band Directors of Texas. So our presentation is called New in Town, Putting Your Best Foot Forward. And when we're presenting, we're going to cover this in 3 categories. So our first category is going to be preparation. So when you got the job, first of all, congratulations. Getting a job certainly is a big feat for anybody, but this is a really good thing, especially if it's your first job. Then going into year 1, we're going to talk about the processes throughout the year that we go through in order to make sure our first time in a new place is successful. And then lastly, we'll go through a reflection. So making sure that we go over what we've done throughout the year, what we've done well, what we want to improve on, and the steps we're going to take going forward.
Yeah, so preparation is the crucial time period right before your actual duties begin. John Wooden says it like this: by failing to prepare, you are preparing to fail. What that means for us as educators, you're like, okay, I got my job, really, really cool thing. What's next? So the first thing that we really suggest you do is ask a whole lot of questions. There are some questions you can have answers to that you can look up, like finding out what music the ensemble that you're going to be conducting or leading, what they've played, or really just finding out what classes you're going to teach, whether you're going to be teaching marching band, concert band 3, concert band 2, whatever that looks like in your situation. You need to know that stuff so that over the summer or between when you get your job and when you actually start your job, you know how to prepare. And the best way to do that is to ask questions. You can ask your head director, or if you are the new head director, you can ask people who worked there before you, like predecessors, and just pick their brains about strengths and weaknesses of the program. And then if you're teaching something new, sort of like, so maybe you weren't teaching trumpet before, or you're now teaching clarinet, and you're like, I've never taught that before. This is a perfect opportunity to seek out mentors, private lesson staff, or colleagues to give you advice and resources for the year.
It's really important to be organized pretty much at all times with our job, but particularly in your first year, you want to keep really good records of important dates and information. I recommend having a planner or calendar that you refer to every time, every day that you're at work. Use it to keep track of things. It's also helpful to maintain a list of contact information for the new people that you meet. Now, granted, everyone's going to be new to you in your new role, but people such as school secretaries, music store reps, or certain boosters that you might be working closely with, it's important that you have their contact information ready to go whenever you need it. Now, a little pro tip, you can also, as you meet people, make a note of their favorite Starbucks or Sonic drink so that later on, if you need a favor or a quick thank you, you'll have it ready to go.
All right. Another important thing to do in your preparation is find your starting place. So, as it says in our slide at the very bottom, Rome wasn't built in a day, and neither should your program necessarily if you're doing some overhaul type things. Changes need to become slowly and paced as necessary. So just make sure that we don't do too many new things all at once. However, here's a good place to start. Your inventory. One of the biggest things that happens in between changes of staff is a lot of instruments, or at least the paperwork for instruments, tends to go missing in between that. And then after that director before you has left, I can speak as an assistant who does the inventory where I work. A lot of things tend to be kind of either misplaced, or they're in a place where that director knows where it is, but they're not working there anymore. So make sure that you're really keeping track of inventory. You talk to as many people as necessary in order to research those records. Some other things, your music library. Obviously, we all know the music library can be kind of a hectic and cluttered place. So make sure that that kind of gets cleaned up as quickly as possible so that you can organize your thoughts around music. Band instrument placements, that's obviously hugely important. You certainly want to know what trumpet player is going to be in your band versus what trumpet player is in the third band, and know exactly what kind of things to give them in order to improve them going forward. If you are a high school band director, you would know all too well that the student leadership team plays a pivotal role in whatever you do during your marching band season. And it's very important not only to get to know them quickly, but to also get feedback from them going forward, in my opinion. Just make sure that all options are considered and you're hearing the best you can from everybody. Private lesson staff, they obviously teach your kids, so make sure that you are aware of not only who they are, but personality type. Sit down with them if you can. Try to make sure that everything's organized with that. Campus traditions. This is an area where you certainly don't want to overhaul those too quickly unless there's something that's a detriment to your program. Make sure you stick to tradition if you can, unless it's something that is just not what you want to be doing at that time. And make sure you know what those are. A student leadership council would be a great place to ask what those are going forward. Performance schedule. Obviously, that's probably set the year before, so make sure you're aware of when performances are, when your PYLs are, and you can format your rehearsals to lead up to those things. And lastly, admin expectations. So obviously, the school revolves around admin. They can either make your day or they can break your day, so please be on their good side going forward. It'll help you out a lot in the long run.
So keep in mind, this year is only year one in what is probably going to be a long journey in this role for you. Now, knowing that doesn't mean that your first year is going to be your best year necessarily. You might not be prepared for everything that comes at you, and you might not be able to predict a lot of the challenges that will occur during the year. But giving yourself grace and reminding yourself that small changes plus a good attitude add up to a big difference over time will help you to make it through this first year with the best intentions and as much progress as you can.
Relationships are the key to your success as a first year teacher or any year teacher. The relationships you make with the students, the parents, and your coworkers help shape how your year is going to go. So you want to make sure you really put your best foot forward and make those conversations. Go out to eat with people, go out to have lunch or get coffee or Sonic drinks or whatever that case may be for that person, and just get to know people. This is not like I'm going to pick your brain about everything right now, because to be honest, like sometimes we don't have time to pick a brain about everything, but sometimes we just want to hang out. And so you have to try to focus on building some of those positive relationships so that you are successful. And so keep in mind their last director left. So you have to reassure them that you're there to stay. You have to let them know, like, hey, I'm here for you guys. I'm going to teach you to the best of the ability I can. And although that may be hard for some students, over time, maybe not immediately, but over time, it will change where the students will start to see the way that you do things versus the way that someone else does things. And then they will gravitate towards you and your silly antics or your silly dad jokes, in my case, or whatever the case may be. And they will gravitate to you, and then you'll start to feel better about what's happening in your program.
Now, there's no denying that humans do not like change. And there is a high likelihood that at some point in this first year, you will be met with resistance from somebody, a parent, a student, a colleague. A lot of times that resistance actually comes from them caring very much about the program or about, the class that you are teaching. And so a lot of times it's coming from a good place, but can be difficult when you're showing up in a new role and just trying to do your best. Now, when that situation occurs, it's really important to ask a lot of questions and make those opposing people feel heard, which might be counterintuitive. You might want to just put up your defenses and fire back. But truthfully, they are expressing concerns that if you want to have a growth mindset in this role, you need to entertain and understand. So you can ask things like, how was this done last year? What did you like or dislike about that experience? Just to give you more background information into what's really going on. Then you can explain the reasoning behind your actions, decisions, or the changes you want to make. Sometimes people, as they are being resistant to change, might not understand where you're coming from. And you might think it's something so obvious and that's being done everywhere. But in reality, if they don't have experience with that before, you have to explain your reasoning behind it. They might not understand right in the moment, but at least you can justify your choices to them in a way that they may understand down the road. And then lastly, seek a compromise. So the only way to finish out a situation like that is to find a compromise. And you might not win 100%, and they probably won't either. But if you ask questions like, how can we both achieve our goals? What is the best possible compromise available in this situation? That's one way that you can still keep those positive relationships with the people around you. You can still make small changes in your role that over time will probably get easier and easier to actually come to fruition in your program.
Another pro tip from us, and this applies not only to the part we're about to talk about next, which is reflection, but also, and should be done during your entire year, is to take notes throughout the year. Take notes of things that went well, things that you want to change, and things that you didn't expect. And the really important key on this is make sure that you're taking notes throughout the year, regardless of how you feel about things the next day. I know there are plenty of times where I'll think about a rehearsal and I'll go, my gosh, that did not go well as I thought it would during the rehearsal. If that's the emotion you're feeling, that's the emotion you should put down as abstract as possible, because the next day when you listen to the recording, you might go, oh, actually, you know what? This is fine. But if you haven't recorded how you feel the current day of, you may not get that exact emotional toll that you had that current moment. Once again, talking about that, we're going into our last portion, which is reflection. With year one under your belt, you are ready to thrive. This, in a lot of ways, is the most important thing you can do in your first time at a new job, is after the year is done. In a lot of ways, we know that our first year kind of happens to us rather than we happen to it. Make sure that you reflect on the things that went well, once again, the things that didn't go well, and the things that you want to change going forward in order to create success in your program and in your new destination.
When reflecting, it's super important, like Jack said, is to take notes throughout the whole year. And a way that you can do that is either using your notes app, you can use voice memos, you can have a planner. I know some people are physical people, you write it down. If that whatever works for you, you just have to do it. You have to commit to doing it for more than just 1 week. It's got to be a habit that you have to build. And so you can use your notes, you can use your calendar from the past years to help you make goals and plans for the next year. Or say that, for instance, I'm teaching beginner clarinet. I did this thing well, but I didn't get as far as I would like to go. So I can now go, oh, where did I slow down in my pacing or in my instruction, and where did I mess up, so that I know how to plan better, and I can talk to people about, like, how do I move this faster or do this so that I can get to where I want the kids to be. So it's important to do that and think back on what worked and what didn't work for the past year. Make plans and goals to improve on that experience. Another section of that is coworker feedback. Schedule one-on-one meetings with supervisors or coworkers to discuss areas for growth and goals for the coming year. That is super important, because sometimes it's very easy to be isolated and focus on just you, and somebody else from the outside may be able to look in and say, hey, no, you did these things really, really well. And you need to know those things that you did really well. And then that can help you focus on something that you need improvement on. Another thing that you can think to ask is student and parent feedback. Now, when asking students and parents, you want to do this in a creative way, because you don't want to open the door to where you're getting ripped apart because they didn't like the way that you handled a situation. So an easy way to do that is to complete a Google survey about questions about their favorite experiences this year and improvements they would like to see. Whether that's like, oh, we want to see more social events, or we want to see have more time to talk with our section members. So you're like, okay, then you can take all that information in and say, okay, how can I structure, not necessarily class, because you may think of that as sacred, which it is, but how can you schedule some other times for those students to get to hang out and then make those improvements that you need to make, so that your students are enjoying your class and that you're enjoying your job.
And believe it or not, that first year is going to go by really fast. You'll be at the end of that year almost as fast as at the end of this presentation. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, attending our mini clinic. And we hope that your first year in this new role is a successful one, and that you can grow from it year after year. If you have any questions, you can find us and other resources at our Young Band Directors of Texas website, which is youngbanddirectorsoftexas.org. We're also available on Facebook and Instagram. Thank you guys so much for watching.